It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Oh, my God, what a freaking game. What an awful game. I'm not even saying it as like a good thing. Yeah, they won. Thank God they won. I'm happy they won. I'm stunned they won. But that was torturous. That was not a fun baseball game. You know, there's some baseball games that are very entertaining and they're very exciting and there's ebbs and there's flows. And you're like, man, that was great. That was a lot of fun. This game sucked. Everything about it sucked. And the one thing I will not do is act as if anything we saw in this game is a sign that they're about to go win 10 out of 12. Like, I hope they win 10 out of 12. I hope we're going to look back on May 16th as the game that turned their season around. That's what Ron Darling said, but I'd be lying to you if I think it will. With that said, the Mets salvage the finale against the Philadelphia Phillies. They finished this stretch of baseball against Atlanta and Philadelphia by going 2-5. It could have been worse. They could have been 0-7. That's a fair way to look at it. And we'll start with the finale. We are recording this, or you're watching live, literally 5 minutes after I finished watching this game. I was a little bit behind on DVR, so I finished it a little bit after 11 o'clock on Thursday night. And there was not a moment in this game, not when Pete Alonso hit a home run in the first inning, not when Brett Beatty, of all people, hit an RBI double in the second inning, not when Jose Quintana was cruising, not when the Mets fought back in the eighth inning the way they did and got lucky based on an error and then a wild pitch. There was not a moment even after they got out of the bottom of the 10th inning problem, not even when they took the 2-run lead in the 11th, not even when Jake Diekman got the first 2 strikes on Kyle Schwarber. Never, ever, ever did I think they were going to win this game. Not once. I'd be lying. It'd be all BS. Never once throughout this 3.5-hour, 11-inning tooth extraction did I ever think the Mets were going to win this game. So I'm thrilled they did. They were very, very lucky, but they found a way. So where do we begin? I'll tell you where I begin, and I'm sorry. I got to start with a negative, and that's this closer. This closer is a problem. This closer is struggling. Edwin Diaz is now reminding us of the guy from 2019. You know what? 2019 is too harsh. Let me take that back. He was a disaster in 2019. And I believe that half of Edwin Diaz's disasters in 2019 may have even been mental. He may have been completely intimidated by this city and the pressure that he faced. So I would say this is more 2021, where Edwin Diaz was not a bad closer, but was not that same dominant guy we got spoiled by in 2022. Because here's the reality with Edwin Diaz, and I know this is like an odd compliment of him, but it sort of is. Edwin Diaz is not completely imploding. He's blowing saves, but like we saw against the Phillies in the opener of this back-to-back 2-game series, he got a big strikeout to at least salvage it and get out of it and basically hand it off to the next guy to blow it. And even in this game that he blew, it was sort of the same thing. It could have been completely over after he gave up the RBI single to Bryson Stott, but he struck out Kyle Schwarber and he got out of it in the 9th inning. Now, that's not a saving grace. It's just that he's not completely imploding. He is struggling. And his struggles are not mental, I don't think. His struggles aren't he can't handle New York City the way we used to think it was. His struggles are, and you're seeing it right in front of you, is he has no confidence in his fastball. His velocity's up and down, but more than that, it's his command. He does not nearly have the same command that he had 2 years ago. And I think the problem is there's nothing really you can do about it. I mean, you're not pulling Edwin Diaz out of the closer's role, but 3 out of 4 save opportunities he's blown. Luckily, this is the first time in those blown save opportunities that the Mets won the game anyway, which is always the key. Your closer is going to blow saves. The question is, can you find a way to not have it kill you? It felt like it killed us when it happened in Tampa. It felt like it killed us when it happened 4 days ago. At least on Thursday, it didn't completely kill us because the Mets found a way to win. The key is going to be this. Edwin Diaz is going to get another save opportunity. He may get a few in Miami. He may get some in Cleveland. I have no idea. When he does, can he respond? Can he get out of this? Can this simply just be a funk that he's in? Because closers have funks. We've seen Mariano Rivera have funks. Can this just be a minor funk that Edwin Diaz can get over? Because if it's not, and he's going to be a problem all season long, unfortunately, this team's not going anywhere. Now, you may be out there thinking they're not going anywhere anyway, and that's fine. I understand that. But one of the givens needs to be this closer. And he's not. And you saw it right away. He comes into the ninth inning after the Mets scored those 2 runs in the 8th inning that they were damn lucky to score on. I'm going to give Harrison Bader credit. He came through behind in the count with that base hit up the middle. But think about how they scored those 2 runs in the 8th inning. Think about how the Mets have been scoring runs. Even when they score runs, they're lucky as hell. In that 8th inning, they get an error by Bryson Stott, which was stunning. And then when they're set up with 2 on and nobody out, what happens? Francisco Lindor, another guy who's a problem, more on him later, and J.D. Martinez struck out. They got bailed out on a huge hit by Harrison Bader where he was sort of lucky because it went off the pitcher's back, and if it doesn't, it's right to the second baseman. And then they scored a wild pitch. Jeff Hoffman wasn't even close. And then they score on another wild pitch in the 11th inning. Lucky as hell. But when Edwin Diaz comes into this game, after the Mets give him those 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning, you can't walk Brandon Marsh. And I know it was a tough at-bat, and Marsh kept fouling pitches off, but you could feel it coming. Everybody watching this game, and I'm not sure how this corresponded with the Rangers. The reason I was on DVR is because I get home, I was live with the Rangers, and I started the Mets pretty much towards the end of the Ranger game. By the way, great job by Chris Kreider. Congratulations to all the Ranger fans. So I'm not sure where the focus was for a lot of our Mets/Ranger fans. But if you were locked in on this Met game, you probably thought the same thing I was thinking. You never felt good. Every time Brandon Marsh fouled the ball off, you're thinking, he's going to walk him. Now, what surprised me is when he fell behind Cody Clemens and he struck him out. But then he's ahead of Bryson Stott, his nemesis, who hit the home run 4 days earlier, and he gives up that base hit. And they continue to give up stolen bases. You know, you'd think I'd forget that because when Bryson Stott, as the winning run, steals second base in the 9th inning, Diaz gets out of it, so no big deal. Same thing in the 11th inning when Bryson Stott steals second base as the winning run in the 11th inning. And it turns out to be no big deal because they struck out Kyle Schwarber. But my God, they hand you second base. They've been doing it all year. And it could have killed them twice in this game. But right now, this closer is a problem. And what's frustrating is the rest of this pen, for the most part, has been solid. How good was Adam Ottavino? Adam Ottavino comes in. He's facing the Phillies' best hitter. He gets screwed because he struck out Alec Bohm before he gave up a double, and then still gets out of the inning pretty easily, getting Castellanos and Whit Merrifield. But going back earlier to this game, I think the other thing that continues to be so infuriating about this team is that they have so many big opportunities and they can't cash in. You go back to the second inning, they get that RBI double by Brett Beatty. McNeil draws a walk. They're all set up 2-0 to make this a big inning, to make 2-0, 4-0. And you knew it was going to take that to beat the Phillies. You just knew that. You knew Jose Quintana wasn't giving you 8 scoreless innings. You knew you weren't going to hold down an offense that's scoring 5.27 runs per game. So you've got 2 on, you got 1 out, and Omar Narvaez bounces into a double play. You're set up in the 4th inning after Starling Marte's infield hit. You got first and second, or I think it was first and second, and you set up for a big inning after Taijuan Walker gets knocked out, and Beatty grounds out, and Jeff McNeil, so typical of him, hits that little foul pop-up. You get that great at-bat by DJ Stewart in the 6th inning, that 10-pitch at-bat. He comes through with a base hit, and Marte strikes out. But the real killer was in that 8th inning where they did score those 2 runs. You had Francisco Lindor in a big-time spot, and he struck out. You had Lindor in the 10th inning with the Manfred man on base, 90 feet away, and he freaking strikes out. And Lindor, who got off to an awful start, he got hot. He had a bunch of big hits. We were all feeling good, or at least some of us were feeling good, that he was getting out of it. He's going to put up those numbers on the back of his baseball card. And this week against Philadelphia has been an abomination. He has gone 10 steps backwards. He's back under 200. And with so many moments in this game against the Phillies to be the hero, he is flailing at pitches out of the strike zone. He's just looking awful. He's missing cookies down the middle and fouling them off. He's gone backwards. And now I start to get worried because I always say with guys, well, it's early. It's a long baseball season. Give them time. And eventually they will produce. You're seeing it with Aaron Judge, who I equated to Lindor in this way of, hey, Judge is slumping too. I say it to Yankee fans, don't worry, he'll get hot. And boy, when he gets hot, he'll make everyone pay because he'll probably get back to his career numbers. Well, if Francisco Lindor is going to get back to his career numbers, we're going to have a good old time, man, because he's got a long-ass way to go now. He took an 0 for 5 in this game, and I could argue this was the worst 0 for 5 he's had all year long. So he starts to show signs of breaking out of it a few weeks ago, and now he goes back to this crap. So I don't know what to expect. I can give you the back of the baseball card line again. The problem is I don't want to use it because now Steve Cohen and David Stearns are using it. But Lindor was freaking awful in this game. Awful in this game. And oh, by the way, how about his defense? He made a huge error 2 nights earlier when we talk about the first game of this series. I don't know how much time I'm going to spend on that. That was another abomination of a baseball game. But that was the other negative. Boy, I've done all negatives. I should do some positives. We won, right? I got to cleanse myself. We all have to cleanse ourselves from the negative of this freaking baseball game because there was just so much of it. The lack of a big hit. They get so lucky to score runs. Edwin Diaz is blowing the game. But hey, look, Jorge Lopez, Jake Diekman, golf clap. You saved our asses. But that was the worst feeling win you could ever have. Because even I'm sitting here, I'm pumped they won, but my God, I got to take a cold shower after that game, Pete.
So you asked the question a little bit earlier, and I tried to do as good a fact checking as possible. Where was this next to the Rangers? Well, I put out a tweet at 9:29. Looks like the Mets need a new closer. So that was 9:29. About 2 minutes later, I put out a tweet of Chris Kreider scoring the game-winning goal. So that's where we were. That's where we were.
Wow.
The levels to this.
Look, it depends on one's fandom. Obviously, I think there are a lot of Islander fans who don't like the Rangers, so that was the most miserable 5 minutes a human being could have. But if you are a Met Ranger fan, that's a conflicted 5 minutes. Obviously, the Rangers are more important in terms of where they are in their season. I understand that. But yeah, you had an Edwin Diaz meltdown occurring as Chris Kreider is etching his name in Ranger lore. Makes complete sense. Makes it. Look, here's the positive in all seriousness, because they did win. It was an important win. They're 3 games under 500. They take on Miami. Who knows? Maybe they beat the crap out of the Marlins, and we're feeling good on Monday. I have no idea. Here's the positive. And this is the thing you hold your hat on, or at least maybe we should try to hold our hat on. One of the positive attributes this team has had all season long is their fight. A little different than years past. It feels like they do have fight in them. And there are a lot of examples in losses where we've seen that. They fall behind, they get that tying run up to the plate in the 9th inning, and they lose, but they battle. The Mets in this game had leads, they blew it. They had leads, they blew it. And we all thought they were going to lose. And as deflated as I am, and as deflated as everybody else is, you have to think they are professionals who want to win. They're deflated too. And somehow, after blowing a 2-0 lead and going down 3-2 in the 8th inning, they responded. They were lucky to respond. I admit that. I mean, really, when you look at that entire inning, I give Pete credit for a good at-bat. He drew a walk, but the real only positive from the inning was Harrison Bader's RBI single. But still, that's some fight. And then after your closer, who you trust and you are probably thinking the game is over, blows it, even though you don't do anything in the 10th inning with the Manfred man, your other half of your bullpen, Jorge Lopez, somehow survives the 10th inning. You respond in the 11th inning with big hits. J.D. Martinez, first pitch RBI single. Harrison Bader again, and a huge game by Bader with that double. And then you're lucky to get the second run because it's a wild pitch. And then the fight of Jake Diekman. And they're at least able to win. So that's my the positive is they show fight, but they were damn lucky. I mean, even going through it is a reminder of how effing lucky they were. I mean, think about it. In the 10th inning, they have the Manfred man on second with the top of the order coming up. So you're already lucked into the fact that you got the right hitters coming up. And Tyrone Taylor, to his credit, actually has a really good at-bat in that he throws his bat at the ball, hits the ball to second base, and moves the lead run to third. And you've got Pete and you've got Lindor coming up, and they can't score. At least Pete hit it hard. He hit it right at the shortstop. Lindor's flailing the pitches out of the strike zone, and he strikes out. And then, I'm thinking about the 11th inning. Great, J.D. Martinez got a big hit. Super. Harrison Bader rips a double. That's fantastic. They can't get the second run home if it wasn't for a wild pitch with 2 outs. But they still got it. And it's the little things, man. You go back into how important little things are. You go back to the 6th inning when Mendoza takes Jose Quintana out, which I got to tell you, I didn't love personally, but more on that in a second. You've got Tyrone Taylor missing the cutoff man, allowing the runner Bryce Harper to go to third. That runner that goes to third scores on a sacrifice fly on an 0-2 pitch. He doesn't score if Taylor hits the cutoff man and Bryce doesn't advance to third base. It's those little things. And the New York Mets are terrible at the little things. And that's a problem because they're not talented enough to be crappy at the little things and overcome them. Some teams are. The Philadelphia Phillies are an incredibly talented team. They can overcome those little thing mistakes. The Mets can't. And they got to clean that crap up. And that's been a problem all season long. Their defense, they were talking about it on the broadcast today, their defense, you look at certain defensive metrics, they're the worst team in baseball, or they're the second worst team in baseball. And this was supposed to be an aspect of the team that was improved, and it hasn't been. Those little things need to be cleaned up. Now, let me give some credit. Harrison Bader, tremendous, because when Mendoza pulled DJ Stewart for a pinch runner in the 6th inning, I was iffy about it. Because while, you got yourself some speed in the 6th inning with 2 outs and a runner on first base, doesn't feel like the biggest thing in the world, you are improving your defense. It's a really big improvement to have Bader in center and Taylor in left, even though the very next inning, Taylor made that defensive miscue. I'm not saying DJ Stewart would have done much better. So I thought it may have been an inning or two early from Mendy, but boy, thank God he did it. Because Harrison Bader's 2 at-bats in the 8th inning and the 11th inning won them the game. Major props to Bader. And Harrison Bader, who's not a great hitter, I still don't view him on a good team as an everyday player. He has gotten a handful of very big hits for this team. You think back to that Sunday against St. Louis at Citi Field. The Mets are about to get swept by the crappy St. Louis Cardinals. He's behind in the count, base hit to center field, set up the Vientos home run. And then you look at the base hit he had in the 8th inning. That is a monstrous hit. Because not only are the Mets, if Bader doesn't come through, about to be 3 outs away from losing, they will have spoiled such a wonderful opportunity to score runs with 2 on and nobody out in the heart of the order up. So great work by Bader. Now let me get to the decision to take Quintana out and some concerns about Reed Garrett. So Jose Quintana was very good in this game. Very good in this game. Didn't run into a lot of trouble. Had a very low pitch count. And in the 6th inning, gets the first guy out, gives up a base hit to JT Realmuto. And it was more than a base hit because Realmuto hit it off the fence, but it was played beautifully by Marte. So it was a single off the wall. And then he gives up that infield hit to Bryce Harper. where it was like a clean hit. Lindor made the dive, knocked it down. There's 2 on, there's 1 out. You're up by 2 runs. Your pitch counts at 81. I didn't feel the rush to have to take Quintana out of this game. I didn't feel the need to say, well, there's 3 righties coming up. Let me go to a right. No, Quintana had done a great job against those 3 right-handers. Alec Bohm was 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Nick Castellanos hasn't really been hitting anybody. He was 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Why the rush? Why the rush? I like this Met bullpen. I do. That is one of the strengths of this team. I understand that. But I didn't feel the need in that moment with 1 out in the 6th inning after back-to-back hits to pull the plug that quickly on Jose Quintana. So I disagree with Carlos Mendoza. Now, as far as who he went to Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett is now starting to show you signs that he is more than human. Number one, it seems like he can't get the leadoff man out. And when you come in with 2 on and 1 out, it's kind of important. And he didn't. And that's the base hit he gave up to Alec Bohm. That's the play we were talking about where Taylor misses the cutoff man. And now all of a sudden, Reed Garrett's throwing 1 pitch. There's 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, and he's got a 1-run lead. The other mistake Reed Garrett made is you're ahead of Nick Castellanos 0-2. You need a strikeout in this spot because contact is likely tying the game. You can't hang a slider right in the middle of the plate like Reed Garrett did. And he's lucky if Castellanos is hot, Nicholas Castellanos, like if there had been some kind of tragedy today or something awkward on the broadcast, he parks that one into the left field seats. Luckily, all he did was sky it to left field. And then what happens? Reed Garrett's asked to pitch a 2nd inning. Usually he's done okay. He gives up that leadoff hit and settles down like he did in his last performance against Atlanta. He looks great, gets those first 2 strikeouts against Brandon Marsh, against Cody Clemens. You're feeling good. And then out of absolute nowhere, walks Bryson Stott on 4 pitches, and then gives up a double to Kyle Schwarber. And I'm telling you, as that ball nestled into the right field corner, it took Starling Marte 7 hours to get to that baseball. It took that long. And so you could feel, you could hear Bryson Stott trotting around the bases to give the Phillies the lead. Reed Garrett is starting to feel human. Doesn't mean he sucks. Doesn't mean throw him back. Doesn't mean I'm not using him in high leverage spots, but we are starting to see Reed Garrett, unfortunately, slowly but surely come back down to earth. But the overall problem with the New York Mets in this game, and the overall problem with the New York Mets in the opener of this series, and the overall problem with the New York Mets during their struggles is they are just not scoring runs. It's as simple as that. And so when you're not scoring runs, you find all these other moments, all these sequences where they're not perfect. And yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll rip it apart. But the overriding theme on why they are now 3 games under 500 and why they are where they are is because guys are just not hitting. They're not hitting enough. And you know who they are. We go waste our time talking about it. I can give you the stats to prove it, but we all know it. Francisco Lindor's got to wake up. Pete Alonso had a relatively productive day. He hit that home run early. He drew a walk. Okay, there was something, but Pete Alonso needs to be better. Jeff McNeil, I throw my hands up. But really, after a game like this, and I hate making him the whipping boy, and I'm not, but on this game, it's Lindor. He's batting under 200 again. But it's as simple as their best players need to wake the hell up. That's their problem right now.
Well, listen, I don't want to sit here and defend any of these guys because it's tough too, because everyone's watching the same crap that we're all watching. Jeff McNeil, I think it's been said before, but I think the reason for his struggles batting-wise is because of the shift.
I don't buy it.
Dude, there's no way you could tell me that when the shift was there and people were overexposing certain parts of the infield and he just slap a ball to a certain side. He's not bad at that. He's not bad at directing a ball to a certain place. Problem, he's got no real power. He's like a golfer, dude. He's got a nice swing, to put a ball in nice placement. But when when the fielders are upright, normal position, there's nowhere to go. He's got no holes. No one's giving him an out. So they fielded normal, and it just, it's not McNeil's specialty. Now, here's the other thing, too. Lindor, I'm not even going to talk about right now. Pete Alonso. Can anybody at least acknowledge the stretch he's been on for the past now 8 games? He was on a streak where I believe he was, 1 for 29 or 2 for 33 or whatever it was. It was awful. It was awful, which is why his batting average is 225 or whatever it is today. But going into today's game, his batting average was 321. His OPS was 973 or 937 or whatever it was in the past 7 games. And then whatever you add on today with the home run and the walk and whatever, it's probably, around there or going up OPS wise. But the point is, he is back. He is doing what he's supposed to be doing. I understand that maybe they're not winning games. His hits aren't equaling wins. But listen, we've seen Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani be on the same team, and that never equaled wins either.
Well, no, the problem is they need right now, with so many guys struggling, they need some of their best players to not only hit, but hit a lot. Like Pete Alonso's been better. He has shown signs of breaking out of it. But in the 7th inning of the opener of this series, he comes up and bounces into a double play when the Mets are putting a rally together in the 7th inning. Like, they can't have that. You know what I mean? Like, it's also the rally killing moments. So they're not scoring enough runs. Look, this goes back to everything I thought coming into this season. They were going to have to score runs to win games. This was never going to be a dominant pitching staff. And their starting pitching probably overall has been, I don't want to say a lot better than we thought, but it's been better. It's been decent. It's been acceptable. We know how good their bullpen's been until recently with Edwin Diaz. They're just not scoring enough runs, and it's top to bottom. They're also getting very little production out of catcher, but they get more production out of Tomas Nido than they are Omar Narvaez. So I take that out. Like, let Tomas Nido go out there and play every day. Going back to the opener of this series, and I do count these as 2 separate series, in my opinion. It's not a 4-game series. They didn't lose 3 out of 4. They got swept of a 2-game series, and they split another 2-game series. That's the way I view it. That's how the Rico treats it. You go back to the opener of this series when they actually scored a 1st-inning run because Johan Rojas is dropping a pop-up to center field, and Mark Vientos, in his first at-bat back, is ripping that RBI double. It felt like things were turning in that game. You know what I mean? They scored a couple of runs. They were taking advantage of some bad Philadelphia defense. That's for damn sure. But they were getting a quality performance out of Joey Lucchesi. They had a 2-1 lead in the 5th inning. And I thought as Joey started that 5th inning, you know what? Get me through the 5th inning. Give the bullpen a lead. I'll take my chances. And I don't know what the hell happened. I know he's been walking a lot of guys in the minor leagues. That had been an issue for Joey Lucchesi. He had 16 walks in 38 innings down at AAA. But all of a sudden, he lost the freaking ballpark. But the real killer was when Rojas laid down that bunt with 2 on and nobody out after the back-to-back walks. He needed to get an out. He could not throw to third base and have it be a fielder's choice. He's safe at third. It's a bad decision by him. Then he's walking Kyle Schwarber. And then basically the ceiling is crashing down on him. And it turned into a big enough inning. We're down 5-2. And I'm going even before they broke this game open against Grant Hartwig. At 5-2, I'm looking at this offense in this lineup thinking, there's no way they're coming back because of how little offense they scored. They ended up scoring those 3 runs in the 8th inning. But by that point, they're down 10-2. It doesn't even feel real. But I liked the Vientos edition. Look, I think I said it on the air with Tiki. I'm not sure I said it here on the Rico. Maybe I did on both. That after the second loss to Philly, actually, I was live on the air. So I said it on the Rico, but it had already happened. We were live on the air after they lost that second game to the Phillies, and I wanted them to try something. And the something was lineup change, call up Mark Vientos. They called up Mark Vientos, and in his credit, he gave him a spark right away. Right away. His first at-bat, he rips an RBI double. Ends up going 2 for 4 and gives you something, which is why I thought, and I know they're facing a lot of lefties, okay? They're facing 2 left-handers in Miami on Friday night and on Saturday afternoon, and then they're facing a righty on Sunday. I have not looked ahead to the Cleveland series, but they are facing 2 more lefties, which means Mark Vientos is going to play third base and start on Friday and Saturday. I acknowledge that. He's going to play. But after he gives you something, he gives you a little bit of something. I wanted him back in the lineup on Thursday. Mendy doesn't do it. The positive to it is that in Brett Beatty's first at-bat, he rips an RBI double. And he only got 2 at-bats because then he pivoted in the 7th inning when there was a lefty on the mound to go to Mark Vientos. So it turned out to be a good decision or an okay decision. And I wonder if Vientos being up here and there being a real competition now for at-bats is somehow going to get Brett Beatty going. Hopefully that kind of thing works. Will it work? I have no idea. But at least in his first at-bat, after the Vientos call-up, he did deliver an RBI double. I think the allotment of playing time, and we'll reevaluate after this series against Miami because Vientos is going to get the opportunity to play 2 games in a row. This cannot be a straight lefty-righty thing. Vientos is going to have to start against some right-handers. Now, am I getting nuts about it? Because quite frankly, I think at least for the next 2 days, we're going to see Mark Vientos and we'll see how he performs. But overall, this can't be a straight platoon. Now, let me get to some of these emails because there's always entertaining emails over the course of a crazy game like that. Of course, the Rico B at gmail.com. AW writes, can we retire the trumpet? After blowing the save, Diaz is now out of the inning because Real Muto lined out to Jeff McNeil. So we're lucky, I guess. Lucky to have the misery extended another inning or two, but we all know the result will be the same as if Diaz has lost it in the 9th inning. Cheer up, the worst is yet to come. See, I love reading an email like this because AW represents all of us. I am not reading this to shame him. We all thought they were going to lose. There's not a single person out there, and you're lying if you say otherwise, who thought after Edwin blew this game they were going to win. But we cannot retire the trumpet. That's his theme song. Ethan Chow writes, this effing team is effing feeble. Lindor effing sucks and needs to be DFA'd. He is overrated and overpaid. The Mets got the wrong guy. They should have gotten Corey Seager or Trey Turner instead of this bum. And Edwin Diaz is back to being Ed Lose Diaz. The team is feeble and will lose 100 games for the next 10 years. Steve Cohen has failed to make this team great. It was better under Wilpon. I think this is like satire, or he's doing a Frank the Tank imitation. But that's nevertheless, is that what it was? Is Frank the Tank imitation?
I thought it must be. Yeah, it's like Frank's alter ego.
By the way, I've always said this. Frank the Tank legitimately feels that way, though. Like he's not sticking it up. Chris Tonra writes, send a message, kill the squirrel. By the way, before I read this, I hope he's not being literal. We're not killing anybody, right, Chris? Hey, Evan, love the Rico FAN listeners since the sweater and the schmoozer. This team is effing boring. That's what I hate the most. When I was 10, the Mets won the World Series, turning me into a lifelong, problematically obsessed fan. And now my son is 10 and losing interest because he sees that they're boring. It may have been a spell check issue. Holy ass Bader. Okay, need to stop bitching and watch here in the 11th. Point was, trade McNeil even at the bottom of value. Shake it up. Let's go, Mess. Chris from Columbus. Listen, I'm not a big fan of trading people when they suck. You got to wait till their value gets up and then you trade them. But yes, Jeff McNeil is driving us all absolutely nuts. Absolutely freaking nuts.
Evan,
now, go ahead.
Evan, I just want to piggyback off this because I keep on hearing people saying, trade, blow up the team. You got to trade this guy. You got to trade that guy. First of all, there's no way in hell David Stearns is stupid enough to start trading people right now. The trade deadline isn't until July 31st or August 2nd or whatever it is.
July 30th this season, by the way.
Oh, it's this year? Okay. It's not happening anytime soon. Like I know Luis Ariz got traded, but Miami got rid of Kim Ng, so they have no idea what they're doing. At least we actually have a good head on our shoulders. So that's the first thing. And then not to mention, like, you wanted to trade Jeff McNeil, totally fine. I'm hearing too many people talk about Pete Alonso getting traded. Get rid of Francisco Lindor. Fine. Like, I understand that there's a lot of pieces that seem out of place, but there's also like a lot of like 1-year guys here, along with the quote unquote core guys. Like next year, the team's going to be different regardless. You're going to look at the money's going to dip down to like 140 million, if I'm correct.
Well, a couple of things, and it is the middle of May, and I say that not because, hey, don't worry, it's the middle of May. You're allowed to be worried in the middle of May. I think you have seen me start to show you my worry in the middle of May. I say it's the middle of May because you're not making household changes in the middle of May. You're not trading guys away. You're not buying new players. You're not doing that in the middle of May. It's very, very rare for that to happen. Luis Arraez trade was a rarity. Even when the Yankees traded for David Justice, one of their great pre-July 31st trades of all time, that was like on June 29th. That was a rarity. It usually doesn't happen. So, number one, that kind of talk is just, I mean, it's like...
It's stupid.
It's stupid. We'll have it at some point. Like, yeah, I mean, where they are in the middle of July, it may not be an open and shut case. It may not be. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's obvious you're in a pennant race. Sometimes it's obvious you're not. And sometimes, especially with this new playoff format, it's actually going to be a debate. So we will have that debate. That will not be today. It's a waste of time. I'm not going to do it now. It's because we have no idea. They're a game out of a playoff spot. They could sweep the Marlins and everybody could be giddy again. They could also lose 10 in a row. I have no idea. So we're not going to have any discussions about trading guys right now because it's stupid. It's a waste of time. We'll do that when it matters, when it's relevant. And it won't be relevant until July. With that said, the trading player discussion, if anyone is having it, came from Steve Cohen. And it came from the accidental tweet of the other night. And for those that are not familiar with it, I'll summarize it real quick, and I'll give you my thoughts and Pete's thoughts. Number one, Steve Cohen was responding to somebody on social media, Mets News and Links, who I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure they do a great job with News and Links, wrote about, hey, I have some afterthoughts on last Sunday's Let's Blow It Up post. So I guess they wrote an article about Let's Blow It Up, which, not to criticize Mets News and Links, are we really talking about blowing it up in the middle of May? Save your content till July or the offseason. But Steve Cohen responded to that tweet. We later found out it was accidental by saying, all in the future, not much we can do until trade deadline. It feels like a lot of people saw that, and then it got deleted by Steve, and assumed that was Cohen's way of saying we're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. I know Talking Baseball made that assumption. A lot of Met fans made that assumption. I didn't see any of this until it was all deleted. This is the perils of being on DVR for hours and hours. When I saw it, and I saw it was deleted, I didn't know what to make out of it, to be honest with you. I wasn't drawing the conclusion he's announcing to the world they're sellers, because the Mets have not even told themselves they're sellers. They're not. They didn't sign J.D. Martinez to be a seller. Now, if circumstances lead to where it's best to sell, they'll sell. And like I just said earlier, this may be complicated this year based on where you are in a playoff race. Look, this could be a real heated discussion we all have. Like, hypothetically, it's July 15th. It's the All-Star break. The Mets are 3 games under 500, and they're a game out of a wild card spot. That can happen, by the way. That can happen. Is it likely to happen? It's on the table. I'm not sure how good the National League is. That will create, but they're not that good. How do you not sell? Should we be the White Sox? Remember the white flag deals of a couple of decades ago? So I'm not convinced that in the middle of May, the owner of the Mets is out there tweeting, yeah, we're going to sell. Don't worry. We'll do that in July. He don't freaking know. So all in the future, not much we can do until trade deadline could also mean, hey, we can't make any moves till the trade deadline. We can't add a bat if that's what you think we need. We can't add a pitcher if that's what you think we need. So it was pretty innocuous. He then definitely felt the need to come out, do that interview with Andy Martino, and proclaim to the world it was accidental, and that's not what I meant. And said twice in a row, I expect this team to be a playoff team. Now, that is challenging for me to feel confident in that, even though I was confident in that coming into this season, because, hey, they've played 43 games. Am I confident right now they're going to be a playoff team? No, I'd be lying to you. I hope they can be a playoff team. I don't think it's insane for them to be a playoff team, but am I confident in that right now? Absolutely not. But he came out and said, I think we're a playoff team. So here's what I take out of this social media faux pas and then interview with Andy Martino. What I take out of it is that Steve Cohen should just get the hell off social media. Get off it. Because, A, he's not telling us anything. Like, if we're checking his likes or what he tweets because we're trying to get information on the Mets thinking, we're not getting it that way. We're just not. So he could do himself a favor and probably all of us a favor and just disappear off social media. We don't need rah-rah tweets of, boy, baseball's ups and ebbs and flows and ups and downs. Just get the hell away. That's number one. And number two, I've learned nothing about what the Mets are going to do at the trade deadline because the Mets don't know what they're going to do at the trade deadline. And anyone who says otherwise, they're lying to you. It is the middle of May. They are now struggling. It is frustrating. Is there a scenario where the Mets are aggressively selling players at the deadline? Of course there's a scenario. They did it last year. They did it last year in a way that stunned all of us. So I can't put anything past what they may do in July, but a lot of baseball is going to be played between now and then. So let's just worry about the day-to-day and the game-to-game before we start thinking broader than that, because we will have time to think broader than that. And I don't know why, as baseball fans, some of us feel like we got to go there all the time. There's nothing we can do about the roster right now other than suggestions like call up Mark Vientos, which I did 2 days ago, and they did great. Or, hey, give this guy a shot. Or, hey, do this with the rotation. Or do this with the bullpen. Those are in-season discussions. During the trade deadline or during the offseason, trust me, there will be plenty of time to talk about every effing trade one can imagine. But right now in May, stop looking for the owner to tell us what the future is when no one knows what the future is until we see them play their baseball.
Two things. First of all, there's this thing about social media, especially X, formerly of Twitter. Sarcasm doesn't really hit sometimes. I don't know if Steve Cohen was trying to be sarcastic. I really don't know his tone. I don't. But I can't imagine him trying to drop a bomb that he knows something and here we go. So it's just like, dude, like after a while, he might just respond to people, be nice, could be sarcastic, could be funny, could be whatever. Like, I don't take anything of what he's saying on social media.
Well, and also, I wouldn't take it seriously. And also, Pete, remember last year, Steve Cohen had a press conference, and it was not around this time. I think it was more towards June. And it was basically like, yeah, we better win games. If we don't win games, we'll be open to anything. And then when they sold off Max and Justin and David Robertson, I remember he once said, why are you guys surprised? I basically told you, hey, if we don't turn it around, we'll make moves. I think it's very similar. If the Mets are not in a pennant race and somehow they bury themselves, and at the appropriate time, we'll talk about who they can trade. I think that's also, you know why that's also a stupid discussion on the, well, who would they sell? Because the performance of guys may look so different 2 months from now than they look right now. You know what I mean? Like Sean Manaea may be a hot target come the middle of July, depending on the kind of season he's having. Right now, we don't know. Right now, he's having a good year. Sevy's having a good year. So it's just so stupid's not the right word. I apologize. It's like there's so much more to happen that it's such a big hypothetical. But I think, to your point, Pete, Steve Cohen told us last year with actions and words what will happen. If they're out of it, no shit, Sherlock, they may sell. Now, do they go to the extent of selling Pete Alonso? I think that's based on price. I think it's based on what they're offered. I think it's based on private conversations they've already had with Scott. I don't know. I hope not. I think they may have a better return in getting a draft pick compensation by him leaving as a free agent than the prospects they get back. Does anyone factor that in? Because that's real. They may not get a good enough package back where they may be better off getting the draft pick if he leaves as a free agent.
Well, that's
him on social media. Like, I'm ignoring it now, Pete. The only reason I brought it up because I know it's a thing and I know a lot of people paid attention to it.
No, of course. But I think you nailed it right there, dude. Like, David Stearns, I've said this from day one, is evaluating this team on all levels. every single level, like whether it's major league, minor league. Like we're sitting there talking about all these great prospects they got back last year, but they're underperforming or they're hurt right now. And they're not here, So I think David Stearns is really going to evaluate. This is all I could see a scenario where the Mets are in it the entire season, 500 the entire season. Maybe you see some people get sold off for a couple prospects, but nothing of major, because he wants to really see what these players could do at all levels. If like a Brett Beatty can actually perform at this major league level, Mark Vientos, if Mauricio comes back, can he play up here? And that's where he's going to decide I think this thing is all going to get flipped around in the offseason, and the Mets still can make the playoffs with this team and still be flipped around.
Well, if they want to make the playoffs, and if they want to turn this season around, and if they want to make us happy, this series against Miami is monstrous. And it's monstrous because the Miami Marlins have been bad. They've been bad. Now, I know they've won a couple of games in a row, but the Miami Marlins are 13-32. This is imperative for the Mets, who have not faced the Marlins yet this season. Think about who they have faced in division. They have faced the Atlanta Braves 6 times. They have played the Philadelphia Phillies 4 times. That's who they played inside their division. They finally get a crack at this crappy Miami Marlin team. And I'm going to tell you right now, I want to sweep 2 out of 3. Obviously, I'm not going to be devastated, but I want more than that. Like, they need that after what we've witnessed, because this has been a long stretch of crappy baseball. It really started with that finale against the Dodgers. Here's how this Mets season has gone. They began the year 0-5. They then went out and won 12 out of the next 15 games. And we're like, whoa, here we go. Since then, they're 7-15. So this has been a kind of 3-tier stretch this season. A bad start briefly, a really good hot streak for about 2.5 weeks, and now you're looking at about 3.5 weeks where they have played badly. Well, they have the Miami Marlins right in front of them. Now, Cleveland's not going to be easy after that, but one series at a time. They got the Miami Marlins right in front of them. Christian Scott is going to make start number 3. Punish the Marlins. Punish the Marlins. It is important for this Met team to get right now. Go win 3 in a row. Win a couple of games against Cleveland. Then you've got the Giants coming to town. Then you got the Dodgers coming to town. So it gets tricky, especially when you face a Dodger team that's going to look far different than the team you beat out in California. But it is very, very important. In fact, I'd argue right now, they have played a lot of series this season. This was a real tough test against Philadelphia and Atlanta. And how they doing it? They didn't do well. They went 2-5, and they easily could have gone 0-7. I think this series is their most important of the year. Because if the Mets are going to be a contender, if they are going to be battling for a playoff spot, when they face crappy teams, and the Miami Marlins right now qualify as a crappy team, you got to beat them. I understand the Phillies are better. We all know that. The Braves are better. We all know that. The LA Dodgers are far better. We all know that. When you play the Marlins, beat them. So that's what's on hand for the New York Mets as they enter this 3-game series in Miami against the Marlins. Thank you very much for listening, downloading, watching, however you take in your Rico Brogna. You could always email us to ricob@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail, 725-222-8699. Thank you very much for listening to Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.